I can't remember exactly when I first met David Inouye. We have known each other for a very long time. We've both been working at the Rocky Mountain Biological Lab for a long time. Dave's one of the top scientists who's working with what we call phenology. That is the timing sequence of when flowers first open, when bees first come to pollinate them, when it gets cold enough so that they all have to go into hibernation and so on. He's been working in that area for a very long time, along with a whole series of others that have to do with the relationships of plants to insects, for example.
And now we're starting to try and link the effects of phenology and the effects of flower abundance to a variety of insects or hummingbirds that use these flowers. We have some data on what's the first date of arrival of a male broad-tailed here. That's pretty easy to tell because you can hear them. And another set of consumers that I'd like to eventually start linking to is seed predators, because their abundance is probably linked both to the abundance of seeds, which is correspondingly linked to the abundance of flowers, but also to the abundance of pollinators. So, at some point we can begin to put all these different pieces of the puzzle together.
So David has an amazing data set from the phenology work that he's been doing since the 1970s. And one of the things that makes it very useful is not just the presence of the data set itself, but also the fact that he can combine it with other people's data sets. And he's extremely eager to do that. So my collaboration with him started when I had dinner at his house one night, and he said, "So Carol, what is your butterfly nectaron?" And I told him the species, and he ran over to his desk and he came back with a graph for the last 30 years of the numbers of flowers in his permanent plots of that species and said, "Is this of interest to you?" And I said, "Yes. Can you email me that? And I'm going to stay up all night analyzing it."
I focus on the timing of flowering, and I work on David's data set that he started back in the early 70s. This is the 40th year for it, and we count flowers every other day. It's one of the most detailed records of the timing of flowering in the whole world. It's been a real privilege to be able to work with David on this project and ask some questions about how climate change is affecting the timing of flowering.
Phenology is now a really big thing because we are changing the envelope in which we live, that is the climate. David is an expert in what has become one of the most important areas of science and has done internationally recognized work in that area.
Human food supply is very dependent upon pollination in general, and understanding the creatures that perform the pollination service and the food and the growth of plants that results from that is really important, as any farmer can tell you.
Well, the ESA is the Ecological Society of America, and it is the preeminent organization in the world dealing with the relationship of plants, animals, microorganisms, and human beings to their environments. David is coming up as the next president of the ESA, which is an extraordinarily prestigious position because ecology today, as I think everybody realizes, is the single most important science.
I think one of the most special things about David is he has a very unique perspective on science, ecology, the natural world, and the way that the world works. And his insight from sort of taking his time and really looking at things and observing is just something that not a lot of people do.
When I think of who the top scientists are and have been at RMBL over the more than half a century I've been involved, he's one of the first 2 or 3 names that come up because he's done so much brilliant work on phenology up here and because he's a really thoughtful, wonderful, brilliant scientist. And I think that's the key thing. Not only is he really smart, he's really a nice guy. And frankly, science goes much better if you have a lot of colleagues that you like, and Dave is one of the ones that everybody that I know likes.
I see it both as an obligation and as something I enjoy doing to try and convey what I'm learning about science to as broad a community as I can.